I'm Nick Kraus, co-founder of USA Warrior Stories. We've done over 200 videos so far, and we're looking to do more, so please think about subscribing and supporting our channel.
USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is John Robert Lilley II, named after my Uncle Jack. I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts in March 18, 1929. My dad was in the Army in World War I, and my uncle was in the Navy in World War I. Well, when I was growing up, the World War II was in its throes. And all young men wanted to be in the service, as did I. But being too young, and my folks not willing to sign for me, I had to wait until I turned 18 to join. And I just wanted to be a part of it. I really felt strange not having been able to be in World War II, because in those days, patriotism was high among the young men, and I was one of them. But so it turned out that I joined the platoon leaders class and went to college at the same time. I graduated from Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I got my degree in mathematics. And upon graduation, I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. Then I went to a final 60 days of training.
All the training is in Lejeune, or were you?
No, Paris Island, Quantico, and Lejeune. I was shipped over to Japan, and from Japan I was, after 30 days training there, then I was flown over to Korea. K-25 or something like that was the name of the airfield. Then driven up in trucks up to where the war was actually being fought. And then we dismounted from the trucks and walked the rest of the way up to our rifle platoons. And I was a second lieutenant, but I became a rifle platoon leader in Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. And we were fighting in the middle part of Korea like a seesaw going back and forth. And I joined my rifle platoon, and the next day we were on the attack. A rifle platoon is the guys who go out and meet the enemy. And I got wounded in the thigh there from a hand grenade. And didn't get evacuated because it wasn't serious enough, so it was very hairy then, yeah. You know, and then we went up to North Korea, and we spent the rest of our time in North Korea, except gradually we fell back to the line of demarcation, which was the 38th parallel, and we set up our defenses along the 38th.
How many divisions or parts of the Marines were involved in Korea?
1st Marine Division.
1st Marine Division.
Yep. Right. Winters were unbelievably cold. I'd say the norm was about 10 below zero. A good part of the time it was 20 below. And on occasion it went down to 40 below. But that was not the norm. But 0 to 10 below was what we were fighting in at that time. I mean, if you didn't have gloves, your hands would be frozen stiff. special gloves I'm talking about. We had these new, what we call Mickey Mouse boots. They were rubber, and then air, and then rubber, and then air, and then rubber. And they protected us pretty well as long as they didn't get wet.
Could you just give me a little bit of an idea what the losses were like, how it was for you?
Well, one sticks out because when I got back to the United States, I went to see, he was my runner and he was killed. And I went to see his mother. She lived in Brooklyn. She was playing bingo. And when she saw me, her face just dropped. And she started to cry. And she ran out of the room. And I followed her, and we chatted for a while, because he and I were together when he was killed.
Did you have much air support? Did you remember any of that going
Oh,
on?
yeah, believe me, without air support, we would not have gone on. I mean, our mission was impossible without air support.
The masses, I guess there were huge amounts of North Koreans, Chinese coming down.
There were. But it was pretty hairy.
Well, when we first got together, you told me that the Korean conflict needs to be focused on and told the story.
Well, you just used a term which doesn't really set well with Korean veterans. That's Korean conflict. That was no conflict, that was a war. We were proud of what we did. We accomplished everything we tried to. I'm talking about the Marine Corps now. I know the Army lost a lot of men up on the ice along the DMZ, and then more Army came in and the Marines, and we were able to take back the territory that the enemy had to cede to us. I served on the West and then moved to the East Coast and came back on a Navy ship to Japan. I was there exactly 10 months. That was a normal rotation date for Marines at that time, was 10 months. Well, first thing after career, I still had time on my first contract. As an officer, you're not enlisted, so you don't have an enlistment period. But we had a contract for a certain number of years, and when that was over, I got out. And then the Vietnam War was about to break out, so I went right back in, and I stayed. Then I stayed on active duty till I retired. But a lot of Marines did that too. They got out after the end of the Korean War and then went right back for Vietnam. Vietnam, there we had 2 divisions: 1st Marine Division along the DMZ, and the 3rd Marine Division protecting the 3rd Marine Division headquarters. When I went to Vietnam, first I was assigned as the head of a resupply base called LZ Stud, Landing Zone Stud. And I was the officer in charge there. I was a lieutenant colonel. But we were under pretty much enemy bombardment, not steadily, but occasionally during a long period of time. Because I was there about 8 months, and we would have a period of relative quiet, and then again we'd get a period of pretty heavy bombardment. No, then I became CO, commanding officer of the 3rd Engineer Battalion. And then my troops were in constant contact with the enemy. If it wasn't one of my platoons, it would be another one of them. See, in Vietnam, we had fire bases. we'd fly a unit into the top of a mountain, and they would capture it, drive the enemy off it, and then we would bring our weapons in, our heavy artillery, and set them up on a hilltop. We call them fire bases. And that's when my engineers would do the blowing up of rocks and things that were in the way of the bases we were setting up. And we'd build a road around, in the base, within the base. Well, there would be a perimeter around the top of the mountain. And we used the top for observation and set our guns in defilade around the backs of the mountains where we were firing. 3 or 4 days to start with, then you'd set up your guns, and then you'd have another, that would be another fire base. It would be improved all the time you were there, until finally it would become an area that was pretty protected from any bombardment. And I used to go with them all the time. I always took turns. Whoever was on the line, I would be sure and be with them part of the time. Well, Agent Orange was a factor in a lot of Marines' lexicon. We suffered from the effects of it.
Did you know they were using it for defoliation, and did you think about it back then?
Toward the end.
Toward the end?
Yeah, at the beginning we did not. But toward the end we knew the effects of it, because it wouldn't take that long for some of the factors to be noticeable. We were reducing the presence of the Marines. We were up along the DMZ, and so they did it regiment by regiment. So when the regiment that I supported came out, my men came out at the same time. Now I say my men because I had already been evacuated because my tour was up. My 13 months tour, I'd been there, and it was over, so I had rotated out. But my men get out at that end point. I'd only been out a short time, but it was still before my troops got out. Well, I received the Silver Star for action in Korea. Well, I got that in the field. I got a Bronze Star at the end of the tour in Vietnam. The division commander gave me the Bronze Star. I stayed in the military. I stayed on active duty. I stayed on active duty.
For how long?
8 years. Oh, I was stationed at headquarters of the Marine Corps in Washington, stationed at the Pentagon, and you certainly didn't find that at the end of World War II. But I think it started creeping in the end of the Korean War.
We're talking about
Disrespect for the military.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the Vietnam War, it was really rampant. But the services bear a lot of that fault. They didn't treat their veterans the way I had been treated. There was a Korean GI Bill, but it wasn't as good as the one after World War II. And yet, the people who fought there fought just as hard as, you know, my son and my grandson, both Marines, and they didn't stay in. They just didn't have that spark to make it a career like I did. Well, believe me, I felt very strongly, but I think I had the fervor of a person who lived through World War II, young person. But I think that's what instilled in me the desire to serve and to serve well. Yeah, I was invited to participate in the Purple Heart ceremony at the Navy SEAL Museum over last weekend, and it was really thrilling to be there and to be honored. So, well, we received a hand-carved cane, and it's something that's going to have a lot of respect in my apartment. It's going to be hung on the wall in plain view of me. I treasure it already, and I'm sure that everyone who received one treasures it too. I've never been honored like that, like I have been there at that ceremony at any time in my life.
Jack entered the Marine Corps on the 1st of April, 1947, served with distinction through the 1st of August, 1981. He was wounded in action at DMZ in Korea on the 31st of May, 1951. He's also been awarded the Silver Star, Bronze Star with V. He served in both Korea and Vietnam. A Marine's Marine. Jack, thank you.
We received a lot of love and a lot of honor from that ceremony. You don't find much of that anymore. But it certainly came through on that weekend.